welcome to the Daily Verdict Show. I'm Frank.
I'm Albert.
And we're going to have a couple of quick subjects today to get into. Pretty much the main one that's legally pressing is the Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation hearings.
Yes. Deliberations are going on this week. She is really not being grilled too hard. It's really a lot of grandstanding, which is what normally happens in these situations. To disqualify, I should say, Supreme Court nominee, I mean, you really have to have some smoking gun to say that they are legally not competent or qualified to be a justice. And it's almost like being a juror. You have to show some kind of bias or some kind of inability to weigh the issue fairly. So really what these hearings are all about are making little commercials for congressmen and senators, to get up there and get their 15 minutes in for their constituents. So I don't think that there's going to be any problem with her confirmation.
Right. And it's going to be tough for them to be dirty like they did to Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I don't know if we remember that 2 years ago. The confirmation hearings had descended into a witch hunt, basically, based on evidence, or not even evidence, based on the statement of alleged victim of sexual assault from 25 years ago or 30 years back. Yeah. I mean, the main issues, I think, that is on the Democrats' mind, surely, regarding Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation are abortion, gun control law, and Obamacare. Obamacare seems to be what they're talking about most, as well as Roe versus Wade. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, certainly on abortion. I have some thoughts and feelings on that, but as far as the Supreme Court nominee, she's doing the tap dance. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing, which is saying Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. That is correct, and I'm not. It's improper for me to comment on anything that might come before me, which is also correct, because if she already signals a predisposition to rule one way or another on a case before she's even heard the case, she's obligated to recuse herself, and it's completely inappropriate. So again, the hearings are an exercise in mental something.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get a lot of meat out of her. And so far, she's done a really, really great job of towing that line of not stepping in any landmines that would give anyone any ammunition to vote her down.
Yeah, she's a sharp cookie. She is sharp. She's been like a Ginsu knife there, just cutting any type of attack coming her way. Anything, she's been able to shoot it down. And she's come out pretty much very unapologetically as pro-life, which is a good thing, I think, that she was able to come out there with that without the fear or without trying to hide her real feelings on the subject.
Now, she's Catholic.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about this. With abortion, you always have to factor in the religious implications of it, because it's not just a medical issue for some people. It comes down to a dogma of a large number of Americans. And per Catholic canon law, there's things that you can disagree on with the Catholic Church and still be within the good graces of the Church. There's different levels of sin. There's the bad ones. There's the mortal sins and the venial sins. But per Catholic canon Church law, there's certain things that are just absolutely you have to fall in line with the Catholic Church, or you are not in good standing, for lack of a better word. Abortion is one of them. The Catholic Church takes a very strong stance on abortion. And in fact, the Congress of Bishops have said that if you support indirectly abortion by way of financing someone's abortion or supporting candidates whose policies can directly further abortion, you are sort of an accomplice to that. And what has been said and what was said, I can't remember which candidate it was. It may have been Nancy Pelosi, but her diocese refused to give her communion at one point in time. I have to check on that. But there are bishops who say that, yes, if you are a politician and you support abortion, you should not be able to receive communion. That's a pretty serious thing. So with abortion and a Supreme Court nominee being Catholic, it's interesting. Can she call herself Catholic if she does not rule a certain way? Is her faith more important to her than doing the job of a Supreme Court nominee? I don't know that I necessarily want a Supreme Court nominee to do anything but be a Supreme Court judge, and I don't want them to necessarily bring in outside considerations, because if you do for your religion, then you have to do that for all other religions, and I think we've established that separation of church and state is fundamentally, at least essentially, a good thing, conceptually a good thing. But I don't envy those at the hearing right now, because should they press her on that, they're going to come off as anti-religion, attacking her religion. You never want to do that. You just can't.
Yes.
But her religion requires her to do everything she can to overturn Roe versus Wade, to end abortion in any way possible. So, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I like to see it in a non-religious way. I mean, the law, I mean, when it comes down to it, we're talking about whether a fetus is a life, if it's alive or if it's not alive, if it's considered a life. And it's funny because the law considers a fetus a life in the event where the mom gets murdered. The criminal or the person that committed the act is charged with 2 murders, for the murder for the unborn child and the murder of the mother. Whereas the mother can have an abortion and face no legal consequences whatsoever. So the law is a little bit inconsistent there, the way I see it. I mean, we're either saying that the fetus is alive, and it's a life, and it deserves, it has rights, and it deserves to be protected, and to have a chance to be born and live, or you're saying that it's just a clump of cells. But that inconsistency there, I always find interesting, how they can say, yeah, that's murder on one hand, but not murder on the other hand. And it's okay in one way, and it's not okay in the other way. There's an inconsistency there that is it's just funny to me, these arguments.
So what seems like what's going to happen, what I think's been happening is, I think a lot of cases have been waiting in the wings and in the background, waiting to be tested. And I don't think that the winds were favorable for testing some of these cases. I think once she is confirmed, there's going to be a flood of litigation from the right that's going to try and test these things out, not only abortion, but gun control.
Yeah.
I think there's been a lot of cases where maybe they've just been put on the back burner because they knew that they would not have gotten a favorable ruling.
Yeah. This year, actually, there was, I believe it was 10 gun control cases that were scheduled to be seen by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can elect which cases it chooses to listen to and decline the others. If they decline them, then basically the lower court's decision stands. And in this circumstance, there was 10 gun control cases. Not one made it to the Supreme Court. Some people say that it's because they felt that the court they didn't have the votes. So the more conservative justices, or justices that are more apt to rule for the Second Amendment, decided not to bring those up because they could potentially make bad precedent or bad law. But we don't know. We'll see. I mean, certainly Coney Barrett seems to be a strict interpretationist of the Constitution, so she's a textualist. So she's gonna look at the Constitution, and that's another thing we mentioned real quick, putting our lawyer hats back on. The Supreme Court justices don't make law, so they can't decide abortion is legal or illegal. The only thing they can decide is whether a law is constitutional or not constitutional, whether it's abortion, gun control, anything like that. So certainly, if there's a law, if Roe v. Wade were to be overturned somehow, which is one of the greatest fears of the Democrats, it would be up to the states to decide how they're going to handle abortion, whether they're going to outlaw it, not outlaw it, and then that law would create a case which would then also be in front of the Supreme Court, potentially. And then the Supreme Court in that case could decide, yeah, a fetus is alive, a fetus has rights, and those rights need to be protected. But that would be, maybe a whole generation down the road. These cases are not fast. As far as the Second Amendment is concerned, there's an interesting case coming up regarding a person who was convicted of driving under the influence, a felony, and he was trying to get purchase a firearm afterwards, and they wouldn't allow him because basically under the law, if you're a felon or if you've been convicted of a felony, you do not have the right to own a firearm. However, he's arguing that it's not a violent felony, and that he should be allowed to exercise his Second Amendment rights. Okay,
so when you talk about stripped of your Second Amendment rights, what kind of time period are we talking about here?
It's forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually you have to petition the court to reinstate your rights after you've been a felon.
All right. So how do I feel about that? I on the one hand, it's once you pay your debt to society, that's it. That was the whole point. Once you pay your debt, it's a clean slate. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah. To me, it's if they're afraid, once you pay your debt to society and you're back in society, integrated in society, if for whatever reason you're not trusted to have a firearm, then maybe you should not be back in society. I mean, once you've paid your debt to society, that's it. You did your time. You completed whatever was mandated of you, whether it was prison, community service, whatever it is. And now you should have all of your rights. First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. All your rights should be preserved, and you should be allowed to live your life as normal, or as best as you can as normal. There's already so many challenges. So I'm always against those types of punitive issues that stay with you for the rest of your life, especially after you've paid your debt.
I'm trying to think of a scenario where, I don't know, I agree with you, and it's kind of hard to argue that. I mean, how do you deprive someone for the rest of their life? And now, you're talking nonviolent felon, but even a violent felon, I mean, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If it's okay for a nonviolent felon to get their rights reinstated after serving their time and paying their debt to society, why not the most violent? You're out. If you spend 50 years in jail and then that's it, you're out. I mean, shouldn't all rights be restored?
I think so.
I can't think of an argument against it.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that you can talk about recidivism and the chance that someone might commit a similar crime again and the risk to society and that or the other. But, we don't have crystal balls. And isn't the prison system supposed to, what's the word I'm looking for? Rehabilitate. Isn't that the whole point of our system?
It's supposed to be. Yeah, I'm usually for people getting their rights back, being able to vote, being able to exercise their Second Amendment. Especially after they've served their debt, they made a mistake. They paid for that mistake, and now it should be a clean slate.
Okay, we'll talk about paying for a mistake. What about this situation that we have in Florida where we have outside donors paying the fines of people who are convicted of crimes so that they can have their voting rights reinstated? Is that a circumvention of the law? Is that proper? Or is that a blatant attempt to try and farm votes just months ahead of an election.
Yeah, that definitely is.
I mean, it is. They're it's looking for votes, but is there anything wrong with that, of having someone else pay a fine so that you can have your voting rights reinstated?
I think so. I think it just opens the door to partisan groups getting in and basically buying people's votes. If it's a debt that you owe, then you have to take care of it yourself. But if a third party comes in and it's a left-leaning organization or a right-leaning organization that's paying off your debt, which not only reinstates your rights but has other benefits as well. They're conveying benefits to these people who are obviously going to feel a certain type of way about who they're going to vote for, why they're going to vote, and it just opens the door to makes it ugly.
So, is it any different really than handing someone a Target gift card with a politician's face on it and saying, "Hey, here's a $100 gift card, wink, wink.
Right.
Do what you want."
Yep. Exactly.
By the way, you can vote here, here, and here. Here's your gift card.
Right. Exactly. They can say, "Hey, I'm going to pay off your past due credit card bill to increase your credit score. By the way, vote." It's the same. It's something of value that conveys a person a benefit. And even if you say, yeah, but we're not specifically saying quid pro quo, it's still ugly. It's still too gray an area for me to accept.
It's icky for sure. It's icky. But is there anything by the letter of the law, illegal or wrong with it? I don't think there is, as long as there's no agreement, there's no documentation saying I'm doing this and you're going to do this. I mean, it's icky for sure, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at. But
the Florida statute is pretty broad, but I don't think it's ever been tested that I could find. But it basically says, anything that you exchange of value to either promote or try to have someone vote or to entice someone to vote. Anything that's given of value to entice someone to vote, whether it's silent as to whether it has to be to either party, but just in general to vote, is considered voting fraud or bribery. I don't recall the exact language of the statute, but it's pretty broad. So that just the fact of you giving someone anything of value to entice them to vote, regardless of who to vote for, is enough for the statute. But I don't think, and I looked very briefly, and I just didn't see anything where that statute's necessarily been tested. But we'll see. They were talking about charging Bloomberg for paying $2 million worth of people's fines. That's something of value. That's definitely to try to entice people to vote. I don't know if anything's gonna happen from that. These very wealthy people tend to be able to do as they please and face little to no consequences.
Now, I don't know what the solution is, but personally, I cannot stand the Supreme Court system as it is today, because here we are talking about liberals and conservatives. These are the greatest legal minds in the country, and yet they always vote party lines. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If we're in a criminal trial and you have a jury, in order to convict, you need you can't have one person hanging out there who doesn't agree. You have to have unanimous jury. Okay? So the greatest legal minds can't look at an issue and all come to the same conclusion. The greatest legal minds. That's ridiculous. To me, that undermines any decision that is not unanimous, which is pretty much every decision the Supreme Court has ever made. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if there's some meta-humans that we can create in a test tube or androids or something, but the fact that the Supreme Court, what's going to happen because you look at the little R or the D after their name. That's
unfortunate. I mean, the Founding Fathers didn't even expect that. I think the original Supreme Court was four justices or six. It was an even number because they never figured that there would be a tie, because they figured that there would the greatest legal minds in the country could come to a consensus as to whether something was constitutional or not. Yeah. But the problem is that there's two schools of thought.
Yes.
One is that the Constitution is a living document which, people, justices can read and infer, things that aren't necessarily written down in the Constitution, which makes the Constitution basically evolve through legal precedent. And then there's the strict interpretation of the Constitution, which is the other camp, which says, hey, the words on the document are the words on the document. It's either constitutional or not. You can't look at it through the prism of today's eyes. You can't infer additional information in it. It's just the text is the text. For example, your right to speech is your right to speech. It's written in the First Amendment. That's what it is. You shouldn't infer additional rights that aren't in the actual text of the Constitution.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's what it comes down to. I suppose it's just strange that it's all been whittled down to one of two perspectives on interpreting the Constitution.
It's politicized, and this might be politicized even further. Now they're talking about packing the court, which is adding more justices. Mm-hmm. So instead of having it would be a 6-3 court, which is 6 Republican-nominated justices to 3 Democrat-nominated justices. They would add maybe 4 more Democrat justices, obviously, which would put it 7-6, which would give them a majority. But then the risk in that is that obviously the next year or the next time the next party comes into power, they might want to add more. And where does it end? When we have a Supreme Court of 56, 30, 60, 80, 100 justices, and they're just going to keep one-upping each other or having justices removed and lowering it. It's a bad idea to pack the court, as they say, or to add justices just, because of a political agenda. Yeah. Because where does it end?
Well, that's a lot for today.
Yep.
Oh.
Well, thank you so much, guys. This is one of these days we'll post one of these videos and edit it, and then you can subscribe here or down here, right here.